Welcome to Satsang. A lot of people have been asking me to elaborate more on being. So today I'll be giving quite a bit of information about being, the 3 stages of being, which of course has already discussed, and other ways of understanding and experiencing it later. Anyway, when it first occurred to me that I'm a human being, it had such an impact that it brought a shift, and it has never left me since. The shift was that I realized that there are 7 billion humans on this earth, but there is only one being. And so in reality, I am that being, and so is everybody that I see and meet. And that's quite something to realize. Now, being is like the sun. Okay, just picture the sun. It's always bright, warm, shining, never changing, always there. When the clouds come, they cover the sun, and of course, you see nothing but darkness. Now, when you identify with that darkness, you'll say, oh, there is no sun. But the sun is always there. So now these are the stages that people go through in the realization of being, to understand and realize this greatest of all realizations, that you are a being playing the human role. It's been repeated many times. I wrote a book about it, but it is all you need to know, because that is complete within itself. Let me give you a little brief history before we go into the stages. Now you might say there are stages to being. No, it's an illusion. There are no stages. But please remember, because we identify with the clouds that cover up the sun and then we think it's dark, that very darkness, when we think it's real, okay, that itself makes us not identify with the being that we are, with the sun, in other words. We think we are separate from it. It is that which creates all the maladies, all the wars, and all the dysfunctions in the world. So, so the stages are this. You know, when you first were born, if your parents were very controlling and they weren't very loving, then by the time you were 6 years old, you actually believed that you're unlovable. You actually believed that you are not loved, that something is wrong or missing. Now, did you know that the first 6 years of life determine your whole lifetime? And that's a fact. So, unless, of course, you begin to realize who you are. And that's the only way that you can remove the clouds from the ever-shining sun of your spirit. So now the being, when it's in full bloom, it's called Mahatma, it's called Maharishi, it's called Bhagavan, it's called Maharshi. In the West we call it Christ consciousness or super being or whatever. But we need a way to get away from this feeling that the clouds are real. We have to see that the sun is always there. In other words, our nature is being. And the only way to arrive at that, we go through 3 stages. Now, these 3 stages are 3 animals that were given by Nietzsche. You've heard of him, right? Now, Nietzsche has been... Nietzsche. I'm correct saying it right? Okay. Nietzsche has been regarded by Sigmund Freud, who was the father of psychoanalysis. He said that he's the brightest, the greatest being in history as far as, you know, the philosophy is concerned of the nature of being. So that's quite something. And incidentally, if you study this, Nietzsche, who passed away in the 1900s, he also affected the way Germany looked and Hitler created war through the beliefs in Nietzsche. But you're going to see why the misunderstanding happened. You see, Nietzsche's sister translated his teachings, Nietzsche's teachings, not in the way they were properly translated, because there were 3 stages. She stopped at the 2nd stage because she happened to be there. Okay, let me get to the stages. Now there are 3 stages. One is called camel, the other one is called lion, and the other one is called child. Now Ken Wapnick fell in love with the teaching of Nietzsche. Now you know Ken Wapnick, he's an incredible teacher of A Course in Miracles. And he himself wrote a book called the the stages of spiritual journey. Stages of the spiritual journey.
Okay.
Yeah, it just came to me now. Okay, that's the book he wrote. Anyway, so these are the stages. Now the camel stage is, you know, the camel is slow moving, not very bright. He walks in the desert most of the time. And he's the world is very real to the camel. Now I'm not talking about the animal camel, but what the camel represents in our consciousness. Okay, so a person could be brought up religious, could be brought up with certain beliefs and traditions, and he doesn't deviate from these, thinking that this conditioning is who I am. Now this is the camel. The camel is not very open to new ideas. In fact, if you approach a camel and you say, you know, you talk about truth, he's just not interested. Nobody could be a camel who's in a satsang, so don't worry. You couldn't be one. Camels are just not interested in truth. Why? Because the movement of life starts that way. We identify with the way we've been brought up, with the way we've been conditioned, and then we identify with it. And so if the first 6 years of life haven't been very loving, then we might have an inferiority complex, or we might have certain fears, or shyness, or other, quirks of personality due to that upbringing. You see? Now that's called the camel, because it identifies with that and says, oh, that's who I am. If you ask a camel, who are you? They'll give you their name and their occupation. So this is how a camel thinks, and it can be helped. The vast majority of people are camels, according to Nietzsche. So we've talked enough about the camel, because we're not concerned with that. That's the average person, more or less. And then the camel reaches a point in his life where he starts to think, I'm tired of being like this. I want to be better. I want to improve. I want to be more successful in life. You see? So when the seeking starts in the camel, it becomes a lion. The lion means its control, its power. Nietzsche called it the will to power. You want to control everything around you. You want to control your life. You want to be in power, in other words, okay? The will to power. So here you start growing towards what you want. And you're filled with wants, desires, needs all the time, because you think that you are lacking. So that's the lion stage. Now the first stage of the lion starts, for example, in modern times. How did you start in being lion? Well, you start taking care of your body. You start eating better food. You start maybe running, okay, you start exercising, maybe take up yoga or whatever. So in other words, the first stage of the lion is taking care physically. And then it reaches a stage where it begins to ask questions about what it's all about. And this is why when the movie The Secret came out, it was such a success, because the majority of people in business are lions. And so everybody wants to achieve, wants to accomplish, You see? So it was a perfect movie, and that's why it became so successful. Everybody wants to succeed. Everybody wants to be better than anybody else. So this the lion is always striving. And in Indian, these three stages were called tamas, rajas, and sattvas. Now the camel is a tamas. Tamas, slow moving. Okay, even material things. Like, for example, if you read a book and it's kind of, the fiction is not that great, or maybe it's, it doesn't feed your soul, we call it tamasic book. If it happens to be something that activates your energy, maybe self-improvement, maybe becoming a better person, self-help, that would be called rajas. Okay? If it's spiritual book, has to do with nothing material, has to do with spirit, we call it sattvas. Okay, you've heard of these terms, haven't you? Right, okay. So this is how it goes. Now, the lion is rajas. It's constantly moving, the will to power, has to control, has to, for example, the lion, when he reaches the middle, because there's a beginning, middle, and end to these stages. When it reaches the middle, he always wants to overcome things in order to improve. Okay, he's always in a struggle. He wants to be a success. He wants to have relationships. He wants to have a family. He wants to build. He wants to own. That can be helped. That's the line, that's the stage, which we know as normal. In other words, everyday life, what we meet in newspapers, magazines, and everything else are lions. Okay, that makes it easy. When you watch movies, they are lions. Okay, but here is something that lions are not aware of when they reach the final stage of the lion, because there's a beginning, middle, and end of everything. When the lion reaches the end of its own journey as a lion, it looks back upon its life, whether it's 40 or 50 or 60 years of age, because it happens usually late in life by the time you actually get rid of the lion. Young people are still having lion, they want to achieve, and it can be helped. This is part of the journey, you see. So when you reach the last stage, you begin to realize as you look back that you've had 4 up to 10 relationships and none of them worked. You've had marriages and maybe you're still married, but it just doesn't fulfill you anymore. Why? Because as a lion there is no success. The success that you want is based on your worldly values instead of on your true values. Okay? So we're seeing that as a lion, you reach a point where you begin to see that life is crazy. I've worked so hard. Now I'm a millionaire and I'm still not happy. I'm still not fulfilled. You see? That's the lion ready to become a child. See, that's the stage when you are ready to awaken to being. You see, you cannot awaken being from a camel to a being. It's not possible to a child. The lion stage cannot be skipped. Now, when you look back and you find that nothing worked, for example, I had a woman not so long ago, a few months ago on Skype, and she was a very successful woman. She had everything in material terms, wealth, marriage, children, etc., etc. But a lot of things have happened to her where she became deeply depressed. But I'm going to make it brief because I talked about this before. But this is how a lion becomes a child. But as we discussed it, I said, what is depression to you? She says, I'm so depressed, I'm ready to commit suicide. Okay, and as we discussed it, I said, what's depression to you? And she said, depression is helplessness. I said, wonderful. I said, stick with that word. And she didn't understand what I was driving at, because she was very businesslike and spirituality was something very new to her. But anyway, we did a relaxing technique so that I don't probe too much, and confuse her further. And I said, do some homework on this, that depression is a feeling of helplessness. And as you deal with this helplessness, as you look into it, you'll find that what you call you, the ego, is helpless. And then there's another part when the helplessness is that the being takes over, you see. But I discussed more to actually be with that depression, with that helplessness feeling. Well, anyway, she called me 3 days later, and she said the depression has just gone, finished. She never suspected it. And after that, she wrote me that she's giving talks, traveling, giving talks about depression and how to heal it by accepting fully that the ego part, the who we think we are, is helpless to do anything. Now are beginning to understand what being is. There is no doer, only the being is the doer. But the lion, the camel, takes everything literally. You see, even if they read the Bible, the camel takes it literally. You know, if it tells you the world was created in 7 days, to them it's actually a week. You know, so no, it's true. Camels are like that. They don't question. They just accept everything as is. But that's not real acceptance. It's just that they're not have the energy to actually look and inquire. The lion becomes skeptical, questioning, distrusting, and wants to get on himself, and they're being driven by a personal need to have, to own, to possess. You see? But as the lion progresses, you know, from first stage, second stage, already disillusionment is starting to come in. By the end, they're totally disillusioned. Totally. And they feel like giving up. I've had so many people on the verge, so depressed, but they've been doing the searching for a long time. You see, spiritual fascination is the lion. People think, oh, I'm being spiritual by doing this and doing that and doing that. It isn't. Unless you are in being, you are not following truth, you see. So when you reach the last stage of the lion, and you begin to understand that all the happiness that I've had was not when I struggled, but when I let go. And you begin to understand, this is the child, you see? The child in you starts coming. All my life, I never had what I really wanted. My strivings were in vain because it never fulfilled me. So many relationships, so many breakups, so much downfall, so much failure in business, back and forth, because that's the world. And then you begin to say, hey, there's got to be something more. The world is not as real as I thought. It is then that you start to move into the child. Now the child is what we call pure being or super being according to Nietzsche. He called it the Superman. Now we'll understand why Hitler actually confused the whole thing. Because he was referring to being when Nietzsche talked about the super being, towards the child, in other words. You know. Now the child is very simply, it means innocence. It means finally you realize that you are not the doer. The doer is the spirit that you are, is the being that you are. There's nothing to do, nothing to achieve, nowhere to go, nothing to look forward to, nothing to accomplish, and nothing to fix. And that's heaven. You see, that's the fulfillment of being. Because now something else. You have realized you're not the doer. The doer is the being. Now, how are we going to understand this? Do you understand how you're not the doer? It's very simple. Okay, the doer means that whatever you are doing that brings you total fulfillment, you are not doing it at all. That which brings you the greatest fun, the greatest joy, the greatest bliss, the greatest feeling of being alive, you're not doing it at all at that moment. One thing that I've always given, and I'd like to repeat it here, is a very simple example. And I'd like to repeat it so that we can really get it. There's There's a child, a boy, playing with a ball. And as he plays with this ball, the mother looks at him and she says, he's growing, he's so happy playing with this ball. He's all fun, right? He's having fun. And then the mother goes over to him and she says, are you having fun, son? He looks at her to answer her. And at that point, all fun is gone. Okay? So who was having fun? It couldn't be him because he didn't know he was having fun. He was fun. Are you understanding? He's not the doer. So at that moment that he was playing ball, he wasn't having fun, he was fun. Okay, that's how we understand being. We don't do, we are. So when you're experiencing love, for example, okay, you see the movie when they get together, they're closer and closer, ready to kiss, and you feel that moment of total entrancement. They're not doing it, they're being drawn together. Love is doing it. There's no doer there. He's not saying, I'm going to kiss her lustfully. No, there's none of that. It is this pull, this magic energy drawing together two people so that there is that magical moment when you say, wow, we connected. You see, there's no doer there at all. There's only being taking over. So when being taking over, we can see it's heaven. It's our true home. It is who we are. You see? So, but what happens is that until we have seen the futility of our attempts, the futility of our control, the futility of our resistance, the futility of our fighting, we cannot realize being. Because we still think we are in control. Oh, I don't like that. Oh, I like this. Oh, this is the way it should be, and I want it to be that way. And we just don't trust. I call it the Holy Spirit, the being, okay? We don't trust the Holy Spirit, that the Holy Spirit is really guiding us. It is who we really are. The I am of you is that Spirit. You see? But when you start trusting it, many things start happening in your life. You find the book you've always wanted to look for. An idea comes to you out of nowhere. You find yourself creative. You create a poem you never suspected that you could write. Where did it come from? Ah, you stopped being the doer. You see? And at that moment, you're so inspired, you're so moved, that it just takes over. Okay? That's called the child. And the reason Nietzsche called it the child is because the child, when you see them playing, there's no doer there. They're just in fun. They're just in play. You see, there's no ego there yet. And it is only when when you become. Now the lion, okay, is an essential stage. It's a very important stage. So we cannot look upon it and say they are wrong. But they think they're in control. So what happens to people who always want to get their own way, they're always wanting to be in control? Let them be. Because things are not going to work out for them anyway. It's just like trying to find a relationship. Oh, you'll find one. There are so many. Everybody's looking for a relationship. You know, all you have to do is wink at a girl and you've got one. You know, or she winks at you and we get together. Oh, this is probably the one for me. You see? But we are being doers here. So it never works out. You see? And when it actually happens, you don't even know it's happening. When it's actually happening. Why? Because again, not doing the being is the doer. Now that's being. Okay? So we are understanding being. Are there any questions at this point about how the being is doing everything? Now to talk like this to a camel, he'll walk out. Okay? Because he wouldn't understand this. If it's a lion, it depends upon what level they happen to be at in order to understand. But the child understands it completely. There is no doer at all. The greatest things in your life that have happened, they all happened without you. You know, when I look back upon my life, so many things happened in my life. Gosh, especially when I was in Toronto. I had my own television show, I wrote a book, I had a big unit trust foundation, I had followers, blah, blah, blah. And I I didn't even know what the truth was, except in words from a book. You know, but at the same time, things kept happening. Okay? Because you might say, well, this is what you were meant to be doing. That is correct. But who's creating, or what is happening here? So we are all being moved by an energy we are not aware of until we get in touch with it and we call it the I am, that which you truly, truly are. And when you start surrendering your needs, your need to control, your need to get your own way, when you start surrendering that, things start to happen in your life. And you find, wow, just like being on a magic carpet. Okay, one of the things that are misunderstood also is that when you are in the lion stage, you want to understand. Oh, people don't understand me. I want to understand why this is happening. Oh, this is confusing me. I can get my teeth in it. Okay? You'll find that in the child stage, as you become more advanced, you give all that up. You don't try to understand anymore. It's not important. The moment you stop trying to understand or figure something out, it will come to you very easily. For example, you know, I think it was last satsang, I mentioned the obvious facts of our oneness. And I said to the people, I said, okay, tell me, what is it that you want more than anything? And some said, well, I want a committed relationship, or I want to travel around the world, or I want to have vibrant health, or I want this, or I want that, as most important thing. And everybody has something that they want more than anything. But the truth is that all these things that you think you want are not really the truth. The truth is that all you ever want is you. Do you understand how we're going back to being now? You is all you know. Why is that? Okay, think of a human being. When the words came to me, human being, I am being. I'm playing the part of Burt. So what if I entered the body of Jan, or Sylvia, or Liz, and I was completely them at the moment as I entered that, and I had everything that they had, all their conditioning. Would I still be Burt? No, but I would still be I am. The I am that I feel I am now, with this conditioning, if I entered you, I'd be feeling exactly like you are feeling now, be you completely, but I still see I am as myself. And that when that occurred to me, it was so clear. You see, there is only one being doing everything, appearing as different things. Like for example, the ocean. The ocean is one. Okay? All the waves are different, unique, separate from each other. But each wave still knows itself as the ocean because it's the same water. So it doesn't matter how often it changes. The I am that you are is always you. But who is this you? So you identify with your background, with your religion, with your nationality, with your tradition, with your training. But if all that was gone, just for a moment, and you were nothing, the I am that you are is everyone in this universe. Are you feeling this? This is so incredible if you feel it, because a shift will happen. You see? So whatever you think that you want most is always you. But in the beginning, it's who you think you are. Got it? You know, if I want to be happy, who wants to be happy? Bert wants to be happy. You know, if I think I am Bert. So I want to be happy. Why do you want to travel all over the world? Because that's very exciting to you as a person. But more importantly, it is you that you want. It is you that you wanted to do it with. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Good. But who is this you? You see, it is you that you want. So when you begin to see that everybody is the same, everybody is the same, what you want is you all the time. But you think of it as your ego, as who you think you are. So therefore, you begin to see that everybody is the same. Everybody that you see is exactly like you. We go a little stage further, a little further stage. Here, you'll find that since everybody is exactly like you, then if I criticize you, I am criticizing myself. If I blame you, I'm blaming myself. If I hate you, I'm hating myself. If I'm angry with you, I'm feeling the anger. Now we're moving deeper. And then we move deeper still. We will see that everything that is happening is exactly how separate we are feeling. In other words, every time that you are sad, angry, frustrated, unhappy, okay? I mean, not momentary reaction. That's everybody gets that, okay? But you get those feelings that last with you, that make you feel depressed. Why are they? Why are they there? Because somehow or other you separated, which is impossible. You cannot separate you from you. But the separation, because the different body, you think it's separate from you. And that is the beginning of understanding of oneness. Until finally you realize there is only God. And God is being, super being. See? So that is the only doer there is. All power is that. All wisdom is that. All heaven is that. You see? And that is who you are. And what happens is that you're not different on the outside. You're not different when you realize that. But now you trust it so completely because there's nothing else. Absolutely nothing else. You see? And that's how you move. Now, now we understand about the three animals. The camel, the lion. Okay? They're clear, right? Okay, good. So, so those are the stages that are inevitable, because only as you give up, so to speak, trying to be in control, trying to change things, trying to fix yourself or others, or you see, this is when you fall every time, because that's how life teaches you. It doesn't work until the doer is automatically drops. Now, now, how are we going to work it every day in order for us to begin to trust the being, so that the being gets purified with every act, with every thought? It's not as hard as we think. And that is something that came to me quite a few months ago, and I want to emphasize it all the time. And you know what it is, right? Whenever you make a judgment, no matter how innocent, be aware of it. That's it. Just be aware of it. But there is a subtle point when you make a judgment that there's a part of you says, oh, I shouldn't judge. Then you're judging yourself and you're caught. But at this point is be aware when you make a judgment, and then say, thank you for making me aware that I made a judgment. You see, that way you have forgiven it without getting caught in it. You see? So it's all forgiveness really, but it's worked in a different way. So we are making judgments all the time. In other words, we are reaching conclusions about everything. This is happening all the time. I'm doing it all the time. Okay? You know, I'm watching a movie, you know, and says, oh, he's a bad guy, you know, he should be punished, you know, he's bad, something like this. You know, or somebody killed somebody and I want them to get caught. You see, the mind is always trying to manipulate, but you can tell that. It is the nature of the mind. Okay? So what do? Be aware of it all the time, how you're doing it. All the time, how you're being in control. All the time you're trying to change. You see? But the point is to be grateful for that awareness. And as you become grateful for that awareness and see how the mind is constantly taking over that very seeing, And I'm not talking about understanding here, because there's nothing to understand. I'm talking about seeing. That very seeing pulls you into that state of being more and more and more all the time. You don't try to change your attitude, you don't try to change your thinking, you don't try to change your words. Just be aware. As you become aware, you become very sharp. What is going on? And you begin to understand what you never understood before. Because if you understand the control and that it doesn't work, you see, every time you judge, your body suffers, no matter how minutely. You see? Let's say you're going to a party, it's full of people, and everybody is having fun. You're just enjoying yourself. And all of a sudden you see someone coming towards you, this, oh, I don't like that person. I don't want to be with that person. You judged. Feel your energy. It's just gone. All the enjoyment and all the love and all the... is gone. You see, from that simple judgment. So why do we judge? Why does the mind judge all the time?
To separate.
Hmm?
To separate.
Okay, but why do we need to separate?
Be better.
Hmm?
To be better.
To be better. And why do we need to be better?
Guilt.
Okay, we want to feel secure and we want to feel safe. Because but you are right, it is that feeling of separation, and so we judge because we want to reach a conclusion about a situation or something to give us a sense, oh yeah, that's the way it is. To give us a sense of security and safety. Okay, so thank you. Okay, so are there any questions now, please? Because this is yeah.
So when you spoke about the oneness that is truly there, you know, the seeming separation between myself and another, you and another, it's all an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
So in the truth of that, is there any sense of is there any individuality that's still in that truth of that?
This is the biggest thing, you know. We really think that the individual exists. This is the greatest hypnosis, and it is an amazing thing because it's in most people. The camel and the lion totally believe they are individuals. But after you've gone through those experiences, you begin to realize that individuality does not exist at all. It's being a lie. And as a matter of fact, more teachings are coming, even in quantum physics and metaphysics, is that there is no individual. It seems to be an individual.
So personality and...
Yeah, so what are these things? It's called consciousness, okay? From awareness is our heaven. Pure awareness is our home. Okay? Pure awareness, a child is in pure awareness. When he's full of joy, it's pure awareness. Okay? When we're playing or creating or feeling fulfilled, that's pure awareness. You're not aware of something specifically. You're just pure awareness. Now, consciousness is the sum total of thoughts, emotions, your past, conditioning, and it seems that you happen to be an individual because consciousness is what you are conscious of. Got it? And so what you're conscious of creates separation, you and what you're conscious of. So that separation is what causes the whole point of dilemma, suffering. Okay? But the thing that people often say is that, but Burt, I can't help it separated. I can't help thinking like, of course not. Nobody is trying to make you stop doing that. There's nothing wrong with the way you are actually thinking that things are separate and that you are individual. But be aware that is not the truth. The truth is, you know, when you love someone, aren't you happy?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Right away. You see, the moment you connect, you feel better. Immediately. So inside, there is a feeling, knowing inside, that the more we connect, the more we are comfortable, the more we feel fulfilled. The more we separate as an individual, I am different, therefore I am better or worse. See, the moment you think you're individual, you immediately compare and judge. I am better or I am worse. You see?
Right. Right.
Right. So this is what happens all the time. That's called suffering. But it's so subtle in consciousness.
So the like how we are all instruments of divine will.
That's
all
right.
of us.
Oh,
And so is
beautiful.
that what seems to come across as a personality?
Yeah, the personality
Those-
is the expression of the consciousness. If you've been brought up in a particular nationality, for example, if you happen to be an Italian, Mamma mia, well, you know, you start talking with your hands, right? It's your expression. That's your personality. But you cannot help that, right? You cannot help that because that's your expression, and the expression is always beautiful. So everything is an expression of consciousness. So there's a collective energy called Italian, collective energy called German, collective energy called Canadian. You see, and then it depends upon which town or city you come from, because that has its own collective energy. You see, it's collective consciousness. So everything, you know, so this is all part of the play that creates expression.
So it just doesn't mean.
No, it has no reality except it seems to be a movement. For example, if you look at me right now and I'm doing all these movements and I'm talking and, you know, and expressing, but stop for a moment. Where is it? It's all at the moment it's happening, but nothing is actually happening. It's a movement that is happening, part of consciousness. Okay, we call that personality. Now, the personality also has an energy within it. And that energy within it, sometimes we say, I like it or I don't like it, based on how we feel ourselves, how we resonate with that particular energy.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But there's no wrong or right about it.
Okay.
All right?
So it's just another ploy that the ego takes to
Yeah.
maintain separation.
Right. To maintain separation. Exactly. Oh, that's a good one. A ploy of the ego to keep maintaining separation. Right. And as long as we keep on separating, we keep suffering. It can't be helped. You see? But the key point that I found, which is hard to explain, is that immediately the guilt is so strong in our expression as an individual, so strong, that the moment you hear something like this, you say, but I am so much, I think so much as an individual, I do so much, I am so like, something is wrong with me. Immediately you feel guilty for feeling guilty. Got it? See how subtle it is? All you need to step out of that is to be aware of what your mind is telling you at the moment. And how do you do that? Not very difficult at all. Just be aware of your judgment. You're always judging. Is there something wrong with me? Am I doing it right? There's no such thing as doing it right or doing it wrong. The freedom that you get when you become a child, which is super being actually, is that you are home, you are free. There's no wrong or right, there's no should or shouldn't. There are no commandments. The beautiful thing about Jesus is that he said, I do away with the commandments that Moses gave us. You see? And I give you only love. And the Course in Miracles makes that clear. You see, teach only love, for that is what you are. You see? And if you have love, you have everything. Everything. And what is love? Being. Love does everything. Aren't you happy when you're doing something you love? Work you love, making love, being with someone you love, going for a walk because you enjoy walking in the sun, love that. You are at your best when you are being love. You see, so it doesn't matter what you do, the love, that is the being. The being is perfect love. It's your true home. It's your real assets. You see? And whatever you are at the moment is not wrong. It's beautiful. The point is to be aware of it. You see? When it occurred to me that I am actually a being playing the human role, you know, there was a part where, you see, after, it happens after, because at that moment you are being, period. So there's no mind activity. But then there comes a moment right away after, and you say, my goodness, but there are so many faults, there are so many things, you know. So the moment you understand, not understand, sorry, the moment you see that you are being, playing the human role, that very seeing itself becomes your liberation, becomes your freedom. And the moment you see it, the lion part in you completely starts to fall away. Because all it is the will to power, the will to control, to resist, to fight, to fix. You see? To change, to change someone or somebody. And then when you start relaxing and being you, who you are, you see, then you relax. And the moment you start to relax, you begin to understand things you never understood before. You can read volumes and volumes of a book on metaphysics. It won't do anything until you actually can start living it. This is why A Course in Miracles is beautiful too. It's not a matter of reading the Course, it's a matter of experiencing it. So, okay, any questions here? How many of you understand being a little bit more now, or others see it more from what we discussed? And remember, being is who you are now. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Who you are now. It's not something you're going to get. It's not something you're going to, oh my goodness, I'm going to be being. You are being already. But the mind says, no, I'm not. Then at the moment, the great cloud has covered the sun. And because it covered the sun, it becomes a little dark. So now you might be sad or depressed, or you think something wrong with you, or you feel this and you feel that, which is not so nice. Yeah.
So then, why might being choose to play with this?
To play with this?
Yeah. Why can't it just be? Why does it have to play such a game of not being?
It's all a game. It's all an illusion. You are being all the time. Now you might say, why do we have to go through this? You're not going through anything. It's all an illusion. And when you reach the child, you find nothing happened. Nothing happened. There's nothing that took place. I've always been this. You relax, you take a deep breath. I've always been this. I've never been any better, except before I thought, oh, I had to go through this. I had to be this way. I had to give up control. I had to give up resistance. You don't have to give up anything. You are not that. So this is where the awareness comes in. Alert awareness. Every time you make a judgment. This is the key. Every time you make a judgment, you have taken control. Because you want to feel some safety, some security, a good feeling. Why do I have to go through this when I am being? The question does not arise. I am. Did you get that? Yeah. So when Nietzsche covered the three states, and Sigmund Freud thought it was brilliant, and Ken actually loved it so much he studied it and wrote a book about it, and he said it goes very well with the Course, and the Course talks about the ego. Is there an ego? No. We identify with one because the moment conscious was born and time was created, we identify the nature of creation the moment we start to survive as human, okay, immediately we start to identify. We identify with our thoughts, we identify with our emotions, we identify with everything that's around us. And then we make the biggest mistake of all. We try not to identify so that we feel better. Which is more identification with not doing something. You see? But the point is, it doesn't matter. You are being. There's nothing for you to do, nothing to overcome, nothing to fix. You're already that. Now, if you were to realize that, you've gone through the stages. See? Normally, the stages take on quite a while. Some can take several lifetimes. One can take maybe by the time you are 30, 40, you reached the high stage. It depends upon, I don't know, it depends upon readiness, it depends upon grace, it depends upon how much you want truth more than anything. It depends upon how fed up and disillusioned you are with the world. Now that's an important one, you see? Because the one thing that the final culminating point of realization happens is when you see that the world is not real at all. Not real at all. See? The reality is spirit, the reality is being. And when that happens, reality happens, you live in the world in a way you never thought you would. Because now you enjoy everything. You don't judge everything as bad or good, or I shouldn't do this, or I shouldn't do that, or I shouldn't have a coffee because that's wrong. And no, nothing. That doesn't matter anymore. Anything that makes you feel good, anything that makes you feel pure inside is okay. You see? Because that is who you are. You know, and it's the simplest thing there is. No questions?
Burt, you said there'd be a change. I remember about a year ago you were saying it was a time of great change, starting from this year, next year. How will society and politics, how can these be changed?
They are changing already.
So we don't.
You see, yeah. If you, yeah, I'm sure that you're quite well versed with this. You see it on the internet. You see it everywhere. People are being pulled towards, you know, greater intelligence, greater movement, greater knowing, greater openness. It's happening on a wide scale. But you see what happens when there is a great shift is that the bad becomes better and the good becomes gooder, you know, until it reaches a pivotal point and an explosion. Okay, this is what is happening now in the year 2012. You see, and as we get closer to December, the more things are happening, even on the planet, on a global scale. Things are happening at a great rate. And if you are true to yourselves, you find a lot of changes in consciousness have happened to you. But not always in the way you want it, because we're not the doer. It's what is happening to you is what you need. If right now you are suffering, you need to suffer to wake up. If you find peace, that means you've learned from that suffering. You see? But nothing is bad, nothing is good. Nothing is right, nothing is wrong. There's only divine essence. There's only is. And that is perfect. Now, it depends upon how you allow it to work through you, or you want to be in control. If you want to be in control, you're going to make a mess of your life. Things are not going to work out. I've got Skype clients, you know, and I talk to them, and they control their relationships. And then I say, you know, so we go through relationship one after the other, and it's so interesting. They as they go through one relationship after another, they repeat the same pattern over and over, the same pattern. But as they begin to see, it means they've never learned from each session. All they do is just, they're heartbroken the moment it ends. But it has to end. How else are you going to learn if it doesn't end? So then you go to another relationship because you feel so lonely and you miss the one that just left, and you repeat the same pattern again. And it doesn't stop until one day you wake up and you say, enough is enough. And what is enough is that you give up the need to control things, the need to manipulate them, you see? And to learn to allow the beauty of the moment to be what it is. Because everything is beautiful when you allow it, you see? So, how do you do that? Simply. From now on, and I've said this the last 4 satsangs that I've had, but it's something that you can never repeat enough. And some people are actually doing it on YouTube. You know, I've had people telling me, and they say that they like what is happening. Start being aware of your judgments. Oh, you might have 100 judgments before you actually catch one. But that's okay. Everything is okay, you see? That's the beautiful thing. Everything is okay. So there you catch a judgment that you just made, and you say, oh, thank you for making me aware. Wonderful, you see? And then, because you didn't judge it, you'll catch another one just as easy. And you find, oh, so much energy is happening. I feel so alive. You see, I feel so much gooder. And so this is how it goes. But you see, what is beautiful too is that every time you allow yourself, you know, not to judge your judging, and you are releasing because you are forgiving, giving forth. You see, you're allowing, and so you become closer and closer to pure being. Yeah.
So what you were saying about, I forgot now exactly what you said about the socio-economic situation, the political stuff. It almost seems to me like the whole world is going through this movement from
Yes.
camel to lion,
Yeah.
to child, and then it's kind of on the verge of becoming child, but then isn't there sort of a dark night of the soul that happens there? Because
It happens
the lion
when you
has to have direction, and then
Yes.
how it has
This
to
is
experience
interesting.
horrible disillusionment before it just finally
Yes,
gives up
yes.
and sees through it all, right?
Right.
So
right.
we're in that, I think maybe
Yeah.
we're in that
Do
stage.
you see what is called the dark night of the soul? This is very interesting. This is when it doesn't happen to the child, dark night of the soul. It only happens to the lion. Okay? It happens to the lion because he wants to change things. And then he gets depressed or he gets disillusioned, and he goes to a doctor to take a drug, to get something to help him to get over, go to a psychiatrist. Now, I'm not saying anything against these people, but until you get in touch with what is happening inside you, you can't heal. You see? So and what is healing? Relaxing, allowing, moving through something. You see? So this is it. So therefore you go through a dark night of the soul. And it's a horrible time. It's clinical depression. It is absolutely dark night of the soul. But you created it by simply fighting your own resistance, fighting your own control, controlling the control. It's self-perpetuating, and it never ends. You see? Until you begin to see that you are not the doer. And then you start to trust the power that is always guiding you. Even in the body, it's keeping your heart beating, your digestion going, your cells changing, everything. Everything is being done for you. Right now, I'm talking and I'm breathing. You know, I'm not trying to breathe. It's breathing me. See? But I have one gift as so-called person. I can be aware of that. I can be aware of that oneness which is controlling everything, which is the real doer. I can be aware. And that awareness is my saving grace. that awareness, that allowing, you see? And that is called heaven. You know, this is why, you know, I love the Course, because it was written by Jesus, and Jesus was the perfect, the epitome of total surrender. There was no one more surrendered in history as close as the story of Jesus. And he became Christ. Christ consciousness is the being reaching its ultimate expression. You see?
And Jesus did say we must become as little children to enter
That's
into the
right.
kingdom.
That's right. And it's heaven when the lamb can lie with the lion. And don't fight each other. Nothing. When Ramana Maharshi used to walk on the mountain, there were cobras, there were lions, there were wild animals, there were snakes, all kinds. And one time he was patting a cobra on his head. They followed it. There was one time he said, "Aren't you afraid?" And Bhagavan looked with those innocent eyes, and he says, he can't relate to fear. There is no fear. It's one. Everything is one. And then he said, "But how come that they don't attack you?" He says, "If you were that animal, would you attack a stone?" He says, "To them I am a stone because I show no fear." You see? And that was his explanation. See, when you're attacked by a wild animal, not because it's wild, but because that animal itself was attacked by hunters, and it developed a fear of the hunters. And then what happens is that when you look at that so-called wild animal, you show fear. And all you need to do is run. And he'll run after you. Okay? There's nothing worse than showing fear, because fear to an animal is immediately showing such a dark energy that the lion itself becomes afraid of it. It's an attack upon it, you see? We attack by our separation, by our fear. But when we have love, creates a connection. And it doesn't matter what that human or animal is, that's the connection. And all animals understand love. All animals understand love. You know, one thing I love about Vancouver, I'm walking down the street, you know, I was walking with Sylvia, and you see so many having a dog as a pet, you know, and and they love them like a family, like their children. And it's so nice, because in Europe I didn't see that. I didn't see that everywhere, but that shows consciousness, you see. Did you know that animals have souls? One time a bishop wrote an article in a paper, and he said, "We're spending so much money on animals." He said, "They have no souls. Why?" All living things are divine, and they all have a purpose, you know. Yeah.
Burt, you've said in the past how the script is written.
Right.
Is that what being is?
No, being is not a script. The script is the ego, the karma, the law of cause and effect. Okay, for example, let's say in a past life, you were a very difficult person, you've committed many crimes, you've hurt many people, etc., etc., okay? You know, so naturally in this lifetime it's already written that it is going to happen to you, so that you learn compassion. You see, so that's how it's played. It's a continuing thing. You were never born, you'll never die, but you'll have many bodies. Even myself, in this particular lifetime, my body, I already had 5 bodies. You see? Because they're constantly recycling, you know. A child's body, a baby body, a child's body, you know, etc., etc., teenage body. So this is constantly, now when the body drops, the body is just an appearance of consciousness. You still go on. You still go on the same way. And so what the script is that it is you created the script of what you need to learn in the future to bring you to that state of being.
So you being.
You are always being. But because you think you are a person...
Is that the script is written, meaning being has predetermined this incarnation?
No, being doesn't... being doesn't think. It doesn't have thought. All it is just bliss. It is just complete joy. You know, one time somebody asked, well, what is it like? He says, you know, when you reach orgasm, okay? At that moment of orgasm, you know, few seconds or whatever, aren't you feeling great, such joy? Okay, right? Well, this guru said it this way. He said, when you live from being, that is continuous, that feeling. You're living in that state all the time. You see? It's not something you do, it's not something that... being is pure being, ecstasy, joy itself. You know, you see a child 1 year old, for example, they're playing with their fingers and their eyes light up and they're laughing, and you just laugh by seeing their genuine love because it's filled with joy. Where is it coming from? He's not thinking anything, he has no motives, no agenda. You know what I mean? Where is it coming from? It's coming from the being itself. That is the very nature of consciousness. Being doesn't do anything but is the doer of everything. Now here we go into another long talk. You see, because the being is the doer, it does everything. But nothing is actually happening because it is being. How many of you understand what I just said?
I think so.
Hmm?
Not sure.
Say it
I
again.
think so. Say it.
Okay, you see, this is the paradox of truth, because when you put words into something, the mind has to make 1 and 1 has to be 2. No, in truth, 1 and 1 equals 1. Okay? Because that's the spiritual truth. So in other words, it defies logic. The paradox of truth is that being is the doer. Being does everything, but it doesn't do anything. Oh, there's an example. How it is the doer, but it does nothing. When I was a teenager, I used to suffer loneliness, great loneliness. Well, I've had many things happen to me, so I don't want to go into, but which brought that about, right? Later on, as I began to mature and understand more, I found that what had happened was that I was experiencing oneness, but I thought it was loneliness because I separated from the vastness I was seeing around me. Now, the point is this: where did that loneliness come from? From the vastness of being. That gave me a glimpse to experience it. But the ego said, no, you are separate, you're alone, you're unloved, you're this, you're that. You see? And so it translated that vastness into loneliness. You see? The first man that looked at the stars, he says, oh my God, how beautiful it is, the galaxy, the whole thing, how glorious it is. But then he said, it's so great and I am so insignificant. You see? He separated. And in that separation lies hell.
That's the love.
But the being didn't do anything. The being merely expresses its joy. But if the joy is translated into the darkness, the clouds that cover the sun, then it becomes as if the being brought the depression, because the being is everything and does everything. Okay? Suppose you get a feeling inside you, says, I am love. You know, you feel love. How does the ego in you interpret it? How I wish I had love. How I wish someone would love me. You see? It comes as the ego turns it around and interprets as a need. Where did that love come from? Where did that feeling of lack also come from. You see? The being gave you only love, but the ego interpreted it as a need for love. Because it feels alone, it feels as a person, it feels as an individual. It doesn't see the wholeness of it. It didn't do anything. The being doesn't do anything. The being is love. It is God. It is not something. It is spirit. It doesn't do anything. That's why it's the doer. Because every doing that comes, it comes from this beauty, this vastness that we want so desperately. Watch anybody, they're always looking for love. Watch a little girl or a little boy playing with their parents. They're seeking attention all the time. Oh, daddy, look at me. Or, you know, everybody's seeking love. Where's that need? What is love coming from? From being. But being is not doing anything.
It's like it needs a reflection.
Hmm?
It's almost like it needs a reflection.
Yeah. Oneness is reflecting itself all the time, but it is not doing anything. The being is the doer, but it doesn't do anything. You know, words can be so confusing. But you're understanding, right?
Yeah.
You get that? Yeah. Yeah. Being is it's love. It's joy. Yeah. Yeah.
I find that when confusion arises, not judging the confusion and allowing it to be there, because the mind's not going to understand this, and then there's this peace with that, and then it's like, okay, I'm not here to understand this intellectually, but just kind of like, that is a form of judgment, right? That confusion, oh, I should, it just, that confusion just sucks the juice, it takes the juice with it, the confusion.
That's right.
So it's just like, okay, I'm just going to see, I'm put my hands up, and like, okay, I see confusion. So what? But I'm still here, and I don't know. Like I see everyone.
No, perfect. That's it. That's it. That's how we have to look at things, right? So there's confusion. So what? See, we're trying to make sense out of something. What is confusion?
Contrary to fusion.
Very good. We cannot fuse. We cannot see oneness. We see this against this. My training, my religion against truth. Confusion. We're confused. You see? Stop trying to figure it out. Stop trying to make sense. You see? It's not, am I feeling happy? That's what matters. Relax. You see? And as you begin to relax, it's all a judgment. Even trying to understand is a judgment, because you're trying to make sense out of something instead of seeing it as it is. The seeing is the thing.